airtight. If you know, you know, and if you don't, I'm about to teach you. We're about to go behind the scenes of one of the most advanced and maybe misunderstood sexual scenarios there is. In this video, I'll explain what airtight means, who it appeals to, why it is such a charged concept, and most importantly, my personal experience with it. No, just kidding. I'm going to share that, but also, most importantly, I'm going to share with you how to make it happen for yourself. Now, as a sex coach, I have worked with people who push all kinds of boundaries in all kinds of different ways. And frankly, I am one of those people myself. And airtight is a pretty common fantasy that requires mature communication and a lot of good planning in order to make happen. Airtight refers to a sexual scenario where one woman is simultaneously penetrated orally, vaginally, and anally by 3 partners. You might have seen this in adult media, or maybe had a fantasy about it, or maybe you're just learning about it for the first time. But either way, I want to begin by affirming that group sex dynamics and fantasies about having sex with multiple partners at the same time are very common. It doesn't mean that you have to do them. It doesn't even mean that getting off on them means anything about you or what you actually want to experience in your sex life. But if this is something that you want to experience, there are some things that you've got to know first. Let's talk about what is hot about airtight, what people like about it. First up, themes of surrender. For the receiving partner, it can be about a complete surrender. It is about trusting. It is about being able to lose control inside of a safe environment. For the giving partners, it can be about providing pleasure, creating connection, exploring dominance dynamics. Some people are also into it for the intensity and stimulation. Airtight combines physical and mental stimulation to a pretty extreme degree. It is an overload of sensation. There's a lot of touch and connection and penetration and pleasure happening all at once. I speak from experience. Another thing people are into, taboo. Breaking societal norms can be very freeing. Sometimes what makes a fantasy appealing is that it does push against those norms or what we think that we are allowed to experience. All right, let's talk about how to make airtight happen in your life. First up, you guessed it, communication. Every participant, and there are 4 unless you are using toys, which is totally legit, needs to express their boundaries, desires, and limitations. Clear communication before, during, and after the event is going to be the thing that makes sure that everyone feels safe and respected. Number 2, consent. Enthusiastic consent. Consent must be active, ongoing, and a full yes for all participants. Because without full yes alignment, this scenario can go from very thrilling to feeling like a violation. Number 3, safety and hygiene. Discuss the importance of protection, condoms, gloves, cleanliness. This is just a great way to reduce risks, and it also is a marker of your communication and trust. In order for this to work, safety has got to come first. Number 4, physical and emotional preparedness. Airtight is physically and emotionally demanding. It requires a high level of trust. Emotional preparedness for potential feelings of overwhelm, vulnerability, even jealousy on both partners or all partners' account is essential. Group play itself is always prone to bringing up intense emotions. Knowing how to process them is key. And then finally 5, balancing care and attention. Everyone involved needs to feel valued and included. It is not just about the act itself, it is about the connection between the folks that actually makes or breaks the experience. Who is airtight for? For receiving partners, if you are curious about surrender, being the center of attention, or experiencing full body pleasure, part of the intensity of the experience is creating an environment where you can deeply let go and experience an overwhelming amount of pleasure. Now, for the giving partners, those who are interested in group dynamics, providing intense pleasure, collaborating with other lovers, may make that a good fit for you. It's not an experience for people who just want to be one-on-one with their partner. Airtight may also be a good fit for couples or established partners if you have a great baseline of trust and vulnerability together. I wouldn't make that your first group experience, though. That is a part of my story. Which, if you are interested in hearing my full story, my experience with airtight myself, I'm going to share a little bit about it here, but I cannot tell the whole story. It is just too spicy. If you want to hear the full story, you've got to join me on Patreon as a member. You can sign up for my Patreon at the link in the description below if you want the story in all of the juicy details. All right, here's some additional advice on how to approach airtight safely and successfully. First, start with fantasy exploration. Discuss this idea with your partner and the other potential folks that you'd be bringing in. Maybe explore it through role play, dirty talk, visualizing it together. This is going to be a great way for you to test to see if it feels good before you jump all the way in. Number 2, choose partners you trust. Trust is the single most important thing that is going to make this work. Number 3, set clear boundaries and a safe word. Establish what's okay, what's not okay, and how we will stop if any of us need to. And I mean any of us, not just the female receiver. Number 4, prioritize aftercare. Talking, cuddling, decompressing, and with who is an essential part of the experience. Because even if it's not a super intense sexual experience, which AIRTIGHT is, reconnecting afterward is just as important as the experience itself. Before I share my experience, one more thing we got to talk about: myths and misunderstanding about AIRTIGHT. Number 1, that it is degrading or wrong. I mean, I feel very vulnerable even sharing this on the internet because I also am afraid of being slut shamed. Even as I do this for a living, you notice I don't really share that much about my personal experiences. And part of that is because I'm a professional, but part of that also is because people do think that AIRTIGHT could be degrading, and I don't want that to be projected onto me. It wasn't a degrading experience for me. It was awesome. Another myth is that it's just about the physical act, and I'm here to tell you it is as much about connection and trust and collaboration and trying a new thing and being excited by novelty as it is about physical pleasure. In terms of physical pleasure, I've experienced things that were a lot more pleasurable than AIRTIGHT, but they didn't have all of those other things. Another myth is that it could be easy to pull off. It's not easy to pull off. You need to be able to have all of your body parts working in symphony with each other at the same time. You need to have 3 men working in symphony together at the same time. Actually, I would say that AIRTIGHT is sort of like a celestial cosmic event where the moon is 60 degrees trine Venus and Jupiter is in Gemini. It's a big ask to have all of these things lined up all at the same time. So you may only experience that particular planetary alignment a couple times in your life, and that's okay. At the end of the day, I think it's most important that you ask, what are your intentions for this kind of exploration? Because AIRTIGHT, like any group dynamic, can be incredibly exciting, but requires maturity, preparation, the ability to care for ourselves, the ability to name our needs, our wants, our desires. And whether or not this fantasy appeals to you, there's a bigger lesson here, which is exploring your desires, understanding your boundaries, communicating with your partner or partners. Okay, now for what I think we've all been waiting for, which is my experience with AIRTIGHT. AIRTIGHT is something that I experienced one time in my life. Not that I would never do it again, but checked it off the old bucket list. And it just so happened to be at my first ever play party that I attended with a partner. I had had a lot of time and a lot of space to get to know the other people in the play party. We'd spent several days together, and there was a baseline of trust, there was a baseline of safety, and a baseline of attraction. As I had been interacting with these people for days, I got to see the way that they held their integrity. I got to see the way that they were as lovers with other lovers in the space, just as the party went on. Environment was right for different thing that I should probably make another video on, and that created an environment that led to me having this particular sexual experience. It was a great experience. I felt that it brought me closer to my partner. That was something that he happened to be turned on by and into, so it was a win-win in that way. And as the big sex geek and sex nerd that I am and that you know me for, I was really grateful and remain grateful to have had scenarios in my life where I could have really expansive, even sort of taboo, kinky, wild sexual experiences happen for me that satisfied my curiosity as much as my body and my mind. If you want to hear the full story of my experience, which I have teased many times here and on podcasts and elsewhere on the net, I am sharing that and other spicy love life true stories of my antics and missteps and mistakes, peak experiences all over at my Patreon account. I invite you to join me over there, not just to hear more about this and me, but also to have a space where you can get bonus content, tips and techniques, and other things that are designed to help you to have the best sex of your life, whether that is AIRTIGHT or not. I'm Caitlin V. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I'll see you later this week.